Hello, I'm Dr. Peter Wilcox from the Wilcox Eye Center, located in Hayes, Virginia. You can reach us at wilcoxeye.com. That's WILCOXEYE.com. Thank you for investing some of your precious time to be here and allowing me to expose you to how I and my team deliver alternative and integrated healthcare for you. I present a significant difference in the fundamental approach as I provide healing and wellness through the eye-brain-body connection. The purpose of this talk is to introduce you to alternatives in eye care. I'm an optometrist and I think outside the box. I'm deeply concerned for the well-being of my patients, and I'm forever asking why. Why do we do what we do? Can we do things better? Are there practices and standards of care that are being used now that can be improved upon? And should we change them? And regarding standard of care, we all feel rushed these days in the delivery of healthcare. It's a changing environment. You used to be able to take care of a couple conditions at the same visit, but now you need to take care of one for the time management on the side of the business person, the healthcare provider, and then come back next week and get the other one with an additional copay taken care of. And it used to not be that way. And these things are forced upon healthcare providers for so many different reasons. The standard of care is kind of like when you're building a house, the inspector comes by and looks to see if you've met code. Well, code is the worst house you can get, or the minimum standard. If you want granite countertops or hardwood floors, you have to pay extra for those. But when you get investigated by the home investigator or if you're a doctor and you get audited, you want to make sure you've achieved code, which is good. But don't we want to exceed code in the delivery of things? I try to exceed code. And I definitely bring new products, and if you're building a house, or new technologies and procedures to my patients as I vet them and work them in. There's a 15-year lag between when something is created in the research center versus to when it makes it to the marketplace. And this 15-year lag is a significant problem if you're the one with the current problem and you want something different because the standard of care isn't delivering on that problem you have, that condition you have. And as a word of caution, I'm a smart aleck. I say a lot of snarky things. I also use a lot of metaphors, which you might not appreciate initially, but you will see how it all ties together because I try to take complicated things and work them and knead them out and bring it down to a least common denominator so you can remember them. In order to begin with the end in mind as to what's being presented here today, I would like you to consider how many doctors study, adapt, and apply such concepts in non-traditional technologies and energy sources, such as how are you optimizing your mitochondria? Are you getting enough energy through the ATP? Is the Krebs cycle in the electron transport chain or the pentose phosphate shunt being optimized? What are we doing to reduce your oxidative stress in your body so it improves your eye outcomes? Are you working most efficiently with your anaerobic versus your aerobic respiration? Are you using monochromatic red lights in and around your eyes, or far red or near infrared or far infrared uses of these photobiomodulation techniques in this light exposure to assist you in helping healing and wellness? Are you using pulsed electromagnetic fields, the earth-given pulsed electromagnetic fields which assist in circulation, and are frequencies and resonances being optimized to bring you back into resonance or take things out of resonance that you don't want working well in your body? Are you using oxygen and ozone in right frequencies and natural sources and your body to help you in your oxygenation and detoxification. All these things are things that I work with myself and with colleagues as we bring them to our patients, and they're here for you as well. So as an eye doctor, I can call this talk the alternative treatments in macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy. That'd go over well. I could call it optimizing your body's immune system and energy to improve ocular health. I could also call it fix the eye, fix the brain, fix the body, which is what I do. And by the way, it works backwards. Fix the body, fix the brain, fix the eye. And I could call it, in my snarky way, the eye bone's connected to the knee bone. I am an integrative health provider. I work with your family doctor, with your neurologist, with your oncologist, with your rheumatologist, and sometimes it's a little bit of a chore for someone who isn't exposed to these 15-year early ideas and philosophies. And but nevertheless, I go through that for you. I work with other allied healthcare professionals and great thinkers out there to bring these things to you, because that's how I want to be treated when I'm in the chair. I like using a bigger net. You catch bigger fish and you have a bigger draw of information for which you can cull from. And using these philosophies, to start off with, I'm an eye doctor, I'm an optometrist. We provide routine eye care, contact lenses, work with medical care. But I've reinvented myself or provided different changes to my patients and for myself as I go through life asking, why do we do what we do? For starters, there's this thing called orthokeratology. I like to call it corneal molding. And the reason I'm involved in this is because of the children who come through the practice 20 years ago, whose glasses get thicker and thicker, or whose eyes are getting worse and worse. And somebody who just likes selling glasses and stronger contacts would go, well, that's a good thing. Well, I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, I don't want that for my children. What can we do differently? And so I've worked with this process of changing the way light focuses in the back of the eye so that you can stop this progression or significantly slow it down. If that child woke up and their face was stretched in the morning, or their arm was twice as long, the parent would be running them to CHKD and their pediatrician saying, what's going on with my child? But what's going on when you're nearsighted is, if this is the front of the eye and this is the back of your eye is stretching, and there's consequences to this stretching, short-term and long-term. And we can get in front of this and stop this from happening, and those are things we do. Conversely, scleral lenses I use because the standard of care, the code for fitting contact lenses on some of these irregular eyes with lumps and bumps, would create scarring to that person. And you're the doctor fitting somebody with something that's making them worse. And so I investigated a lot and studied a lot, and it's typical of me to become proficient in something by lecturing and publishing and whatnot, because you got to read and do a lot. And that's the way I work. And so I work with scleral lenses. Now, with macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy and these other chronic and progressive eye diseases, I use the same logic. What are we doing now? Is it working? Can we do something better? So for the purpose of this talk, let's just talk about macular degeneration. A handful of years ago, I had two patients. I like to say I have two favorite patients, and I have lots of favorite patients. But they both, quote, lost an eye. They had a big hemorrhagic event in their eye, and they were from macular degeneration, a bleed, a wet macular degeneration. That happened, and they were within a month of each other. And I looked up and said, what am I supposed to do? And I used the same logic of, let's go try to figure out a better way. So instead of keeping a losing scorecard on these people, and they're getting worse, they're getting worse, they're getting worse, and wow, there's this big hemorrhagic effect, how can we, there's three choices. You take the slope of getting worse and you make it less sloped. Maybe we keep you from getting worse and we flatline you. And wow, what if we can actually make you better? And those are the things I've been looking into, and we deliver, and we love to help you with those things, or your friends and family. So it's no fun keeping a losing scorecard. You don't want to be lemmings going over the cliff just following everything. You want to be the lemming and put your hand up and look around and go, wait, then maybe there's a better way. And that's what I do. So I started looking for the root cause of these problems in a different way. And how many of you are on chronic medications for chronic conditions? And how many of you with those chronic medications and chronic conditions would like not to be on them? And of those of you nodding your head thinking it's me, I'll sit here and say, are you serious about it? Are you honest? Are you a liar? So let me put up my snarky side. And I tell people all the time, because I'm trying to make an impression, that you're a liar, because I call it the 3 Ks: cars, kids, and cohorts. You go, wait, 2 of those start with a C. I know, because you're already thinking. I'm making you think. So cars. After this talk, you go by the gas station to put gas in your car, and I pull up next to you, and as you're pumping gas, I walk up to you with a teaspoon of water and try to sneak it in your gas tank. And you smack my hand and go, you crazy fool, you're going to ruin my car. As you're eating a donut, drinking a soda, and smoking a cigarette, or pick whatever 3 you want. Yeah, you're shaking your head going, uh-huh. And it's true. It's crazy. We take better care of our vehicles than we do our automobiles. Our mobiles that auto us around. The second K, kids. You're suddenly in charge of a 6-month-old for the next few weeks. Do you feed them Gerber baby food or equivalent? Or maybe you make something out of great food in the kitchen and you give it to your child? Or do you give them a donut, a candy bar, and a Coca-Cola or some soda? You know, no. Of course you wouldn't do that. Then how can we let our kids get to be 4 and 5 and they can have whatever they want in their pantry? And we wonder why they're sick, and we have the obesity problem and all these problems in our society. So that's kind of crazy. The third one, cohorts. You go home and your significant other or spouse says to you, I cheated on you today, but just a little bit. You know, just a little bit. What are you talking about? There is no such thing as just a little bit. So there's an argument or inflammation, and let's say you're together a year from now. You forgave them, but you didn't forget because you still never trust them the same. So think about that as a relationship with your body. When you cheat on your body just a little bit, there's a consequence, inflammation, and then there's this long-term thing, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and all these things that come as a consequence of our body being upset with us because of things in our control and outside of our control. So, before I talk about this next little bit, do understand I write prescriptions all the time for different medications, be it orals or drops or this, that, and the other. So I'm not against medications. We just, as a people, need to use fewer medications less often. We do not need to be on these chronic medications if we can choose a better way to treat our body. But, you know, if you look at Hollywood, for instance, it's a business. They got a lot of buildings, a lot of people. They got to support all the cameramen and this, that, and the other, and they make movies. That doesn't mean they make good movies, and we all know that we wish there were better movies out there. But so they're a business running, and the pharmaceutical industry is a business. They have buildings, they have employees. Do they want to cure people or have customers? Well, if you look at the Shark Tank, and they look at customer acquisition cost when they're asking that inventive person going there seeking some financial help, they go, what does it cost to get a customer? And so you can't fault people from running a business to have a business, but you say, is that the bus, is that the car ride I want to be on? You know, for macular degeneration, you stick needles in the eyes for those people who get to the point where there's wet bleeds. And is that where you want to go? Maybe we can avoid going there, and maybe there's better ways of working along that. The AREDS vitamins. We're on AREDS 2 because AREDS 1 was wrong in some cases for people. So Jack Nicholson and a few good men said, you can't handle the truth. Well, he was also cheating because he was doing bad things. So the truth lies somewhere in between the two extremes. So with the macular degeneration, and this can apply for diabetic retinopathy or any of these other things, the first thing I did years ago was just go look at the genes that you can get a buccal swab and you send it off and you find out that somebody's risk factor for having a hemorrhagic event is 20, 30, 40, 80%. And you present that to the patient and they go, you know, that's no good. It's no good to know that you're an 82%er. And so you put them on some supplementing things and you're just kind of watching for the next bad thing to happen. And they go, well, that's not good. It's kind of like the BRCA gene for women with breast cancer and whatnot. Angela Jolie and the people who go ahead and have those major surgical changes to their body, they believe your genetics are your destiny when they're not. They're your tendency. You don't have to have, in many cases, the negative outcome of a genetic error, misprinting, and if you don't expose yourself to the things in the environment that cause a problem. So what did I do? I spent a lot of time going back, self-study, and working on genetics. Because when the 45-year-old patient comes in with, oh my gosh, macular degeneration problems, that's different than when the 85-year-old person comes in with it. So, and that works for all these other diseases as well. So I studied this genetics, and it's very complicated. And so there's basically, it's broken down into these pathway planners and little schematics where there's these gears that come together, and there's 4 of them. You have a methylation, a folate, a transsulfuration, a biopterin cycle, and basically this thing becomes that thing, becomes this thing and that thing, and it goes on and they interact with each other. And sometimes gears are rusty and you just need to spray a little WD-40 on there to fix that. And sometimes you have major malfunctions in these gears. So back to the genes, as far as the macular degeneration goes, if you don't make folate processing well, and you have an MTHFR SNP, or you have too much homocysteine, and all these things that can happen to lead to these consequences in your Krebs cycle and your mitochondria, then if I figure that out with you, then we can use that in helping you avoid progressive disease. So I like to say your genes are kind of like a pond of ice. If you're sitting in a chair and there's a big pond of ice and there's some thin ice here and there's a hole in the ice there, there's some thin ice there, somebody else has thin ice other places, wherever these genetic oopses are. So you have 3 choices if you have thin ice. Avoid it, and it's kind of hard. You got to live your life. You got to eat. You got to do things, but you can avoid it. You can thicken it up, put some cold over there, take some supplements. Maybe you don't take things in order to allow your eyes to get thicker. Or I like to say you walk around life with an extension ladder on your back, and when you go over to the area of risk, and you put it out there like the fireman does to save the dog, and it spreads out the risk. So maybe instead of having 1 of those things, or 3 of them, you have 1 as it might go. So you think about the movie Erin Brockovich. For those who didn't see it, a chemical company's putting gunk into the water table, some chromium, and people in this community are getting sick with cancer. Well, not everyone got sick. Some people got sick. And so what's going on there is that was their area of thin ice. That's where they had susceptibility. You know, our bodies are constantly fighting off cancer. And if our immune system's robust, it can keep that cancer from expressing itself. So in the movie, these people got sick. Well, that's because they got exposure to this chromium that affected them, but it hadn't affected the other people yet. And so if those people who got sick never lived there, they wouldn't have gotten sick. Okay, so that's the difference between genetics and epigenetics. You have your genetics, which are the blueprints for making all these different things that allow us to be who we are and make all the different proteins and processes in our body. But the epigenetics are what the environment, the things that we knowingly and unknowingly expose ourselves to. So genetics affect 10 to 20% of who